Today we're going to talk about adjectives and idioms that you can use to describe your workplace. Remember, in my last video I told you, and I've told you this numerous times, that in part one you're going to be asked about either what you do or what you study, or where you live. So you can check out my previous video on some adjectives and idioms to describe your apartment or your house, or the location your apartment or house is in. And today we're going to be talking about your workplace. Again, there's lots of different adjectives, but these are some of my favorite, and I think they're quite versatile. You can use them in these questions for part one, but they're great adjectives and they're powerful adjectives, and they can be used in a lot of different spots. And some of the idioms that I'm going to talk about as well are the same way. Some are very work specific, but some can be used in many different places. So as always, if you find these videos helpful, give me a thumbs up and a subscribe and a comment. Pass me on to your friends, share me on Facebook and Twitter. If I'm moving too fast for you, remember that the document that I'm looking at today is going to be in the description below, so you can download it at your leisure and review it. And again, if you have any questions, leave a comment. So let's get started. You can see on the screen the first adjective we have here is dynamic. Now, dynamic is really talking about the energy in something, the way things constantly change. So if your workplace is dynamic, it's kind of a fun place to be. It is energetic. There's lots of changes. There's lots of challenges. Maybe your university is dynamic. Which would be the same. There's lots of classes, there's lots of international students, there's people from all over mixing and blending and sharing. That's a dynamic environment. You'll also see on the screen that there's an idiom here. In a dynamic environment keeps me on my toes. What does that mean? Well, a lot of things can keep you on your toes. It means that you have to be prepared. You have to be alert. You never know what to expect. Normally, I tell you to stay away from kind of funny sounding idioms, but this one, keeps me on my toes, is really common. And quite honestly, it sounds very natural. I could say that crossing the street in Hanoi keeps me on my toes. I never know where a motorbike is coming from, or a truck, or a bus. I could say that teaching English keeps me on my toes. I never know what my students are going to ask me. Every day is something new. So that gives you an idea of what this idiom means. Now, you probably know what a challenge is. It's something that's difficult. But challenging is a great adjective to use to describe your work. Or, again, we could use it to describe your studies if you want. You might take on challenging projects, like the example says. People can be challenging. It's not exactly a positive adjective to describe someone. It might mean that they are difficult to get along with sometimes. But usually when we talk about a workplace or a job being challenging, it's a good thing because people like to be challenged. Maybe the alternative would be a really boring workplace, and not many people want something like that. Our next word is rewarding. Teaching can be a rewarding profession. It means that I get rewards from teaching. It doesn't always mean money. In fact, I'd say that almost always when we use the word rewarding, we are talking about something that is not money or not the extra things you might get from a job. Teaching is a rewarding profession because I get to meet a lot of different people, and I get to travel to teach in different places, and I get to help a lot of my students, and that makes me feel really good. That's why it's a rewarding profession, not because I make a lot of money. So when you use your rewarding to talk about your job, make sure you explain why. We're not talking about salary. We're talking about something else, something that gives your heart or your mind or your spirit. That is why a job is rewarding. The next word we have is innovative. And you could say that you have an innovative company, means they're inventing lots of different things, they're trying new things. But I think it's more likely to describe the ideas or the projects or the technologies that you're working with at your company. For example, if you're working at a tech company, you might say they have a lot of innovative projects or innovative ideas for how they are interacting with technology, for what they want their users to do with technology. The example is an innovative approach. Innovative approach, innovative ways of doing things. Innovative would mean new, something that not many people try before or have tried before. Our next adjective is fast-paced, and a co-location for this is a fast-paced environment. So if you're working at a place that's fast-paced, it could be maybe a very busy cafe. It could be a very busy office. It could be a dynamic workplace where lots of things are happening all the time and it's fast-paced. Previously, I have worked in libraries as a librarian. Libraries are not fast-paced environments. They're very quiet and they're very slow. Some people like fast-paced environments, some people don't, but it's a great way to describe your workplace. Flexible is our next adjective. You can see in the example that we talk about a flexible work schedule. You might say a flexible schedule, a flexible job. It means that you're not working the same hours all the time. Maybe you want to take off for your child's birthday party, and your boss doesn't have any problem with that as long as you come in and work extra the next day. They're very flexible. Flexible work schedule or flexible schedule is a co-location. Flexible job is a co-location. And again, bosses and co-workers can be flexible. That usually is a positive thing that we talk about, that they're easy to get along with, they're willing to work with you in various different ways. So it's a good thing. Earlier, we talked about saying that the job is rewarding. And here we have something similar. The adjective is fulfilling. When you say that something is fulfilling, your work is fulfilling, your job is fulfilling, your volunteering is fulfilling, you're really talking about spirit, heart, mind, those things that it gives you that can't be bought. If something is fulfilling, it's a very good thing, but it usually doesn't mean you're getting rich doing it. It's paying you in other ways. Our next adjective is stimulating. Stimulating is invigorating. It's exciting. If we're talking about job, it means you're thinking a lot. You're being exposed to new experiences. Again, I could say that teaching is a very stimulating profession, or I work in a very stimulating environment. Stimulating is that thing that is pushing you in the middle of your forehead. It's giving you a charge. It's getting your attention. So if things are constantly changing, if you're meeting new people, if you're working on exciting projects, those are stimulating work environments. Progressive is our next adjective. It just means that you're advocating progress, change, improvement. So if you work at a progressive workplace or a progressive job, it usually means that the employees are treated quite well, that there's lots of benefits, that there are new ideas taking shape, things like that. I will tell you that sometimes the word progressive has certain political implications to it in the West, in America. So you must understand it and explain what you mean when you use it. If you just say, I work at a progressive workplace, I'm not entirely sure what you mean. So, honestly, like most of the adjectives here, they mean something very specific. So it's always a good idea to explain what you mean and to explain or give an example. Okay, that's a really important part of using adjectives like this. And it's good for you because it's extending your answer and you're speaking more English and you're usually getting out better vocabulary. Also, many people think that memorizing vocabulary is a great way to get a really good mark on the IELTS. And it's not so much memorizing as using it properly and letting me know that you know what it means. So if you use a word like progressive, I work at a progressive workplace, and don't follow it up, I begin to wonder if you really know what it means or if you've memorized it off of a list like this. If, however, you say, I work at a progressive workplace, can explain what you mean and perhaps give me an example of how your workplace is progressive, that's a really high-level skill, and you're on your way to a very good mark on the speaking portion of the IELTS test. Let's go to our next word, is satisfying. Now, satisfying is something that we can use in many different contexts. Meals are satisfying. Sleep is satisfying. But when we're talking about satisfying in a job, again, like rewarding or fulfilling, we're usually talking about something other than money. We're talking about something it gives you that can't be bought. So you have to explain why. Why is your job satisfying? What does it give you? How does it make you feel? Those are all great ways to extend an answer when you use a word like this. And our final adjective is purposeful. I think this is a good word, but it's also somewhat difficult to use. As you can see, it means having a clear aim or intention, or people who are purposeful show determination. So we're talking about the work you do that makes you feel purposeful. That's how I would use this. My job as a teacher makes me feel purposeful because it helps a lot of students. My work here, making videos for you, makes me feel purposeful because I like to help students and I can reach a lot more people over YouTube than I can in person. So it's an extreme word, it's a good word, but again, you have to explain what you mean. And don't think that you have an unimportant job. I used to work at a restaurant, but it made me feel purposeful because I got to visit with a lot of people. I got to know my customers. I'd like to think that I made them happy. So it wasn't being paid very well. It was a long time ago. Many people might think, oh, it wasn't an important job at all. But I felt it made me feel purposeful. And that's something really good. Now, we've covered some of the adjectives. I actually have one or two more on the document that you should download that I didn't talk about in the video, but you can see the example, the phonetics, and the sample use in the document. And now let's talk about some idioms. And again, we have some that are very work-specific, but some that you can use pretty much anywhere. The first idiom we have is hit the ground running. If means to start a task or job quickly and with a lot of energy. So if you hit the ground running, it means you're starting right away. You're starting at a 10 as opposed to going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you start university, sometimes you have to hit the ground running. You don't have a lot of time to ask questions, to breathe even, to take time to figure out what's going on. You have to just jump in. A lot of times jobs are the same way. You have to hit the ground running. There is work going on that needs to be done, and it's up to you to do it. So you have to hit the ground running. This is a really common adjective, and it's great, and it can be used in lots of different ways. Our next idiom is also kind of fun, and it's wear multiple hats. It just means that you have a lot of different jobs to do. For example, maybe you call customers, but you also go out on sales calls, but you also meet with the manager about administration. You have lots of different types of work that you do at your job. So, my job requires me to wear multiple hats, is something that you could say. The next idiom is one that I think you will have heard before. It's think outside the box. My job requires me to think outside the box because school requires me to think outside the box. Thinking outside the box is an important skill. This is a really common idiom, and you can use it in a lot of different ways. Again, however, I keep saying this, you must explain what you mean. You must give me an example of how you're thinking outside the box. Otherwise, it just sounds like you've memorized it and you're not getting the points you think you are. Learn the ropes means to become familiar with the job, become familiar with the basic skills necessary to do that. So in the sample here, it took me a couple of weeks to learn the ropes in my new position. It means that time that you're kind of easing in and figuring out what's going on. Honestly, it's almost the opposite of hit the ground running. I had to hit the ground running, or I had time to learn the ropes. It means I was trained. I figured out how to do the job. I could give you an example. When I started teaching, I pretty much had to hit the ground running. Luckily, I had some experience before. Now I've been doing it many years and it's not a problem. But there wasn't a lot of time to learn the ropes. Our next idiom is stay on top of things. And it means to remain organized, to be in control of things, to manage deadlines, all those other things that we have to do at work. If you have lots of things piling up on your desk, you are not staying on top of things. To stay on top of things is an important skill. We can use this at work, at school, at home, in our private lives, if you have lots of things to do around the house. It's great for work. It's a very common idiom when we're talking about work, but it's pretty versatile and you can use it in a lot of different situations. The next idiom is kind of fun, but it's talking about the effort that you make. For example, I always try to go the extra mile for my students. It means that I'm not doing a bare minimum. I'm going to how far I need to go, and then I'm going a little farther. I want them to have the best experience, right? Perhaps at your job you're the same way. If you are working a job that is 9 in the morning to 5 in the evening, but you go in at 8 and you leave at 6 to get a little extra work done, to take care of your customers or clients a little more, you might be a person who is always going the extra mile. And again, this is an idiom that we can apply in lots of different situations. The next idiom is great. It is get my feet wet. So if you are a younger worker, maybe you just came out of university, or you're interning somewhere, or you're looking for your first job, or maybe you're switching fields, it's important to get your feet wet, or you might want to get your feet wet. That means just like when you start to walk into a lake or river or stream, it's right at the beginning, right? You're just dipping into the water. So it means here to be involved in doing something new, gaining experience. A lot of times, at least in America, when you graduate from university and you're looking for some type of work, you might have to work for free for a little bit to get your feet wet. You don't know enough, you don't have experience. So you do something to get your feet wet for 6 months or a year, and then after that, it's a lot easier to find a job. To be in the driver's seat means, can you guess? It means you like to be in control of things. So at your job, you might like to be in the driver's seat. I would never say, I'm in the driver's seat. But I might say I like to be in the driver's seat. She likes to be in the driver's seat. Here in our example, she finally feels like she's in the driver's seat. We're talking about liking, about thinking, about feeling, but be careful you're not making the statement, I am in the driver's seat at my job. To me, that sounds strange. One of the things I like about my job is that I feel like I'm in the driver's seat. That sounds a lot more natural. So it's an idiom, but like so many other idioms, it's difficult to use and you must practice. Earlier we talked about going the extra mile. Bend over backwards is a similar idiom. It means you will do a lot. You will go above and be above at your job or for your customers. The sample sentence we have here is, the sales team is bending over backward to meet the client's demands. They're doing everything they can to make the client happy. Sometimes we have to bend over backward to make our boss happy. Sometimes we have to bend over backward to meet the expectations of our job. It just means going above and beyond, and also implies some difficulty, right? It's hard to bend over backward. It's uncomfortable to bend over backwards. And we would usually use it, or at least I would usually use it, when it's something that I don't really want to do. When it's something that's a little bit of a problem. Just like bending over backward would be something that I don't want to do and would definitely be a problem. If, however, I like doing it, I would probably say go the extra mile. I'm happy to go the extra mile for my clients. This bend over backward, at least in my usage, has some difficulty to it. I might not always be happy about having to do it. Cut corners is a negative idiom, and it means to do something in a cheap or quick way. Our sample sentence here is, we can't afford to cut corners when it comes to product safety. They're saying they don't want to cut corners. If someone cuts corners, they're usually not a good worker, and they're probably not someone you want to buy something with, or buy something from, or work with. They're maybe a little lazy or a little careless. It's not a good thing. It's usually something you want to avoid if you want to succeed. And our final idiom is think on my feet. When we were talking about dynamic workplaces earlier, about energetic workplaces earlier, they might require you to think on your feet. It means to think quickly and effectively in response to something. So the example here is during the presentation, the camera stopped working, she had to think on her feet. I've had experiences when I was teaching where the internet suddenly goes down. That means that I wasn't able to access my files that were all up in the cloud. Maybe the stuff that I had planned for that day, I couldn't get to. It required me to think on my feet. If you're able to think on your feet, it usually means you're pretty clever, you're intelligent, you're quick, you're fast. It's a good thing to say that someone is able to think on their feet. So that's some great idioms, some great adjectives for you to use, specifically when you're talking about your workplace or your job, if you're asked about that in part 1. But you can see from my explanations, from the samples and meanings, that these words and idioms are applied in a lot of different ways. Again, I'm going to tell you, and I keep telling you, it's important to explain the use of the word, and it's important to provide examples if you can. You can't just drop an idiom like, think on my feet. He thinks on his feet. That doesn't really mean anything, and you're not getting the points you think you're going to get. You have to tell me how. You have to tell me why. If you say your workplace is dynamic, that doesn't give me enough information. I need to know why you think that. And again, it's a good thing for you because it allows you to extend your answer, and it also allows you to prove to me, the examiner, that you know what the word means and that you can use it with style, with collocation, with precision. Again and again, we see in IELTS, in the higher bands, the word precision. So being able to use an extreme adjective or a very precise adjective, explain to me why you're using it, and give me an example, oh my gosh, it is such a high-level skill. But you must practice. So I've given you a list of these words. Down below is the download link that you can get the document. Please download, read it, study it, and begin having fun with these words. These are great words. Try and use them in your English class. Try and use them in your conversations with English-speaking friends. You don't want to go into the IELTS room and try and use these words and idioms for the first time. You have to experiment first and see how they feel, how they work, and to see if other people can understand your use. So that brings us to the end of another video. I'll ask you again to leave me a thumbs up or a comment and a like, and to pass my channel on to your friends and family. Like I always tell you, studying the IELTS is difficult. It's a lot of work, but I have 100% faith that you can do it, and you can do a great job. I have no doubt. So until we meet again next time, happy studies.